Hello and welcome to Uncovered, the podcast with your host, Jason Irving. Join me in a journey to understand what's truly happening in your world and the world around you. This is not about how you're living life on the surface. It's about what's truly driving you from under the covers. I'm going to take you on a journey to deeply uncover the reason why you are here, the ultimate purpose in your problems and the way that they have shaped your life up until now. See, I believe you have a purpose, and your problems are the highway towards ultimate realization of that journey towards freedom and the reconnection of your true self. I've been told I have a different spin on most things, and I'll be giving you my understanding of life, love, and what we're all here for, purpose. To get the best out of this podcast, drop what you already know so you can discover what's beyond you. So join me, let's play this game of life and bring on liberation, transformation, and change. Let's do this.
Hi Jason, how are you today?
Yeah, pretty good. How are you, Philia?
I'm good. Thank you.
Welcome to Uncovered, guys. We are going to be focusing on unworthiness, which is the key to actually letting go of making it about yourself and focusing on humanity's needs and a call on you to bring your best self forward for change.
And how does the world usually look at unworthiness?
Well, I think what we do is it's a freezing moment. So there's two types of people who use unworthiness in the world. The ones that hide it and don't want anyone to know, and they're really, really nice and they're kind and they're caring. So usually unworthiness people are very kind and caring, a lot of them on one side. Mm-hmm. Then you've got your narcissistic unworthiness people who chew the living crap out of each other, of people, of the niceys, and put them in their place. So it depends on the where you're coming from as far as unworthiness is concerned. So what I've found with unworthiness for the people who are really, really nice, they're good when they're actually looking after other people. So they have a role to play. Mm-hmm. And they feel really good about themselves when they're taking care of others and they're doing something for a cause. Then when they get to the place where it's about looking after themselves, they lack. Mm-hmm. Or they want to, build their own business or do something for that's going to make a difference. Their unworthiness locks themselves in, and they make it about themselves, about who would listen to me, who would want anything that I've got to share. All of the thoughts that come with unworthiness. I'm worth nothing, which is worth. We're looking at those thoughts that come along with unworthiness, and we quite often just are unable to take the steps that we could take to get us into a liberated place to change things. Now, when I think about myself, Philia, I've never felt good enough. Unworthiness is what I've quite often attracted with people in the academy, because we believe in purpose in your problems. So I've quite often created a lot of people who don't feel good enough, really nice people, and unable. And so what I did is I focused on other people, and when I was a healer, I used to desperately. I didn't want to see people twice, right? Because I didn't want to get caught that I had no idea what I was doing. So I was like, I was so happy when someone was from another town because they'd only seen me once, because my unworthiness was just railroading me all the time. So when someone would give me a compliment, and you might experience this, guys, if you're listening to this, and someone says, "Oh, you're amazing," and you're like, you feel shame. You don't feel it at all, and people are giving you a really good pep up, and you're like, "Yeah, thank you very much," but you just can't take it in. And I've been like that for a very, very long time, and I'm still like that. The thing that I guess that I do with unworthiness is I make it a humanitarian deal. So I look at it and focus it differently.
That's interesting. I like the thing you said about the compliments. I think that's one thing that we do. We're just like, oh yeah, kind of feel ashamed. And another thing that we might do then is also just bounce it back straight away. Just like if I said like, oh, your shirt's really nice, and you're just like, oh, yours too. At least that's something that I used to do all the time.
Or we derail ourselves. Sometimes to pick ourselves apart and say something derogatory towards ourselves if we're feeling that way, and then it's simply because of the nature of where we've come from potentially of not feeling good enough in some way, shape or form.
Mm-hmm.
And it may be from parenting, it could be from anywhere. The thing that we've got to learn to do with unworthiness is take it a step further. So unworthiness and perfectionism actually handshake together too.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're a perfectionist, then you don't feel like you're going to get it right 100%, like on the money, you won't do anything. So a lot of people that I work with, and this is why I set up my academy, is that a lot of people wanted to get out of the workforce and they wanted to do something. They just didn't feel like they had enough in them to make that change,
Mm-hmm.
to get to somewhere where they wanted to do something that held a greater value to them. So you imagine, how many people do you think are sitting in jobs just not liking what they're doing?
Oh, a lot of them. Yeah.
And they want something else, they have a dream, and you might have a dream if you're listening, but you're not willing to put the skin in the game, or you might have failed. You know, you might have chased that dream and you might have failed in quotes and you haven't managed to get over the line.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a challenge for a lot of people, is that we fail or we don't even take the step.
Mm-hmm.
I'd rather fail than not take the step. And a lot of people don't even take that step. It's just too scary. So safety stops us from taking the step, and unworthiness is the deal breaker.
Mm-hmm.
But if you do it the way I'm suggesting, is if you look at unworthiness as an opportunity, what you'll be able to do is actually take steps no matter what. And if you do, you never know where your life is going to end up. I never thought I was going to create an academy to train people to become mentors, ever.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why is I wasn't good at school. I had my head up in the clouds. My report was always, if Jason paid attention more in class, he'd get better grades. Right? So I had my head up in the clouds all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And now I know that that's been really beneficial, because my ability to connect in with people from a deeper level comes from the clouds.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not the most grounded person, you know that. You've seen me a little bit ungrounded at times. I still get a lot of stuff done, but if I was more sort of earthly, it would have been easier. So I can't, guys, I struggle finding my keys. I have these tiles on my key ring and in my wallet to make sure that I don't lose my stuff. I press the button on my phone. I have find my phone on my computer to find my phone, and then it rings if I've put it on silent. And you imagine what this makes me feel, right? I can't do the simple things right. And then I'm setting this academy up where people are relying on me to be, in quotes, smart, right?
Mm-hmm.
And chest up. And I am in that regard. This is where that unworthiness plays out for me. Mm-hmm. So for everyone who has a sense of unworthiness, you'll have it in your own way. And you've got to break through it,
Mm-hmm.
I think. And if you look at it from a humanitarian perspective, I've found that the most unworthy, kind people are the ones that should be leading this planet. If only they could get out of their own way and step forward.
Mm.
What do you think?
Yeah, I guess that makes sense, yeah, because, you wouldn't take advantage of people,
No.
because you know how they feel and you have this kindness and, yeah.
Yeah, and there's not this push of pushing people out of the way to get what you want.
Mm-hmm.
And unworthiness people will quite often say, how about you go first?
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
So there's a real kindness and a chivalry towards that type of person, and I think unworthiness, if we can use it in a positive way, we can change this world with it. Simply because the unworthy people, if you're like this guys who are listening, that you might be that person that actually understands what humanity needs. So if you put it as a calling, then you can step out of your own way. And I feel really lucky. I have 3 kids, as you know,
Mm-hmm.
Delia, and I think about my unworthiness, and then I look at them, and I want them to experience an unlimited opportunity that they could chase their dreams. So I think I let go of what it is about me, and I focus on my kids. And I think, well, if I don't step in the direction, and I don't prove, no matter how you feel about yourself, that you can still take steps towards the journey that you want to take, then I can show them the way.
Mm-hmm.
That sort of gets me out of my own way.
That's really good. That's like a motivator for you.
Yeah, it is. And I think we all need a motivator.
Mm.
I think it's really important that we have a motivator that's going to, that we can use unworthiness as a golden chalice. So I have my kids, and I also have the academy members. So I look and say, well, I want to make sure that I keep achieving and showing, no matter how I feel about myself, no matter what I'm doing or sensing inside of me, I can still take steps in a direction that's actually going to build more freedom.
Absolutely. And where do you think unworthiness comes from?
Look, I think a lot of it stems from childhood. I don't think our parents were taught very well how to be necessarily good at helping their kids be capable and able. So I see this, and it doesn't necessarily mean like people who are well-to-do.
Mm-hmm.
Families don't necessarily create well-to-do kids. That's not the case either. So it comes down to the way in which parenting has been displayed, and then our own inner psychology about what we hear. So you could have been told, hey, you don't look good enough today in some way, shape or form. Then you don't feel good about your body. You feel unworthiness with how you feel about your body, simply because of one statement that's been made in your childhood, right?
Wow.
And so it can be these particular earmarks that we hold on to. So for me, I got ridiculed in front of my Year 6 class by my Year 6 teacher, and that made me feel really, really unworthy. That was my biggest catalyst, that moment in Year 6 where I was supposed to do a talk in front of the class for the first time. And I wasn't paying attention as best I could, and she ridiculed me and humiliated me in front of everybody. And I spent from Year 7 to 10 not doing a talk in front of the class. I used to go to sick bay so I wouldn't have to do a talk in front of the class. So I didn't want to be humiliated.
Mm-hmm.
And if you think about when we go out into the world, and kids are pretty mean in primary school and high school.
Oh yeah, 100%.
And we want to share something, and we may not get it right, and at any opportunity, other kids can actually derail you and make you feel like you're nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And it takes a lot, right? And then you get people who are putting on a big show, and you compare yourself, and you think, I couldn't be anything like Damien or Michael or whatever, whoever we look at and say, well, they've got more to it than we do. So comparison, I think, is another thing that we do. And one thing that parents don't necessarily do that well is they compare their kids.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? So Stephen, my brother, was the smart one, and I was the nice one. That's how it's said. It wasn't that Stephen wasn't nice, wasn't that I wasn't smart. That's what I remember.
Mm-hmm.
So I was just always the nice one. So that's just what I assumed I was.
Mm-hmm.
And Stephen, my brother, was getting straight A's and straight distinctions at university, and I was getting passes and C's and D's. Right? The reason why is I didn't put work in, he did.
Mm-hmm.
So I created my own self-fulfilling prophecy around unworthiness. I could have gotten A's, but I didn't choose to put the work in.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So I created this bullshit inside of me that built the truth around my unworthiness.
Mm-hmm.
So I challenge myself every day to try to build that level of worthiness inside of me. And sometimes I feel too challenged by it, and still, that who would want to join my academy, who would want what I've got to share. And then the next moment I hear someone telling me, oh my God, if I didn't have the academy, if I didn't learn what I'm learning from you, I'd be nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
And it depends on what we listen to, right?
yeah, you could get like 100 good reviews, and then there's one negative one, and you would just hear the negative one.
That's right.
Yeah.
You know, and I can tend to do that sometimes. Like I'll have 100 people telling me I'm great, and one person tells me I'm not, and I'm focusing on that. Unworthiness does that.
Mm-hmm. But it's really interesting to see as well how you were humiliated in front of your class and then didn't do a talk for so long, and now you're running an academy, you're teaching every week, several kind of sessions, Q&As, classes, all that stuff. And we're doing a podcast right now in front of a camera, which is going to be online for people to watch, you know, and you're being really vulnerable, and you've been teaching for a long time now as well. So how did you change that? Like, how do you feel about teaching now as well?
Well, every time I teach, I imagine that every class is my last. That everyone will walk away every time.
Mm-hmm.
That's unworthiness speaking to me. So what is brought out inside of me is the best person possible. So it's been my greatest teacher to make sure that I leave everything out on the table. I don't leave anything to chance. And so what I've done now with unworthiness, I've turned it into an asset. So I still do this to this day. Every single time I'm about to share a 3-day event for the academy, and all I'm thinking is, this is not going to go down too well.
Mm-hmm.
And then I just leave everything out on the table. And the thing that's really different with me, guys, is that I don't get exhausted by doing this, because all the techniques fill me up. I never get exhausted like a lot of people do with unworthiness, and they feel absolutely stuffed after they share. I don't do that. I actually feel liberated and full of energy. What I've learnt to be able to do with unworthiness is actually leave every ounce of my magic on the table to share.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't hide things. Unworthiness people who think that they've got this own little piece of magic they don't want anyone to know. I don't do that. I share things as I need to, like there's 3 years of the academy. I leave everything out on the table, and unworthiness has allowed me to ensure that I can provide the best opportunity for me to show up. So I'm really grateful for it.
Mm-hmm.
It really comes down to watching, you know, all the people in the academy. They see me stepping, they see me moving. I tell them I'm frightened. I tell them I can't do this, and I get up and do it anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And that's because unworthiness is my ally. It's probably, out of all the feelings of the emotions, probably being my best friend. Simply because it's given me so much that I couldn't imagine myself without it as an asset now. So it's like the polarity to, obviously, unworthiness is worthiness. So every time I accept it, worthiness comes in, and I actually make people feel worthy.
Mm-hmm.
And valuable and important.
Oh, you do.
So I can't thank it enough for being in my life. It hasn't stopped me. It's kept me moving. And it's made me feel inspired by it. It's a very different way of looking at it, though.
Mm-hmm.
And you might notice there's a bit of emotion in my voice today. And there's a reason for that. It's because of this particular emotion and how much, I guess, it means to me to help people find that place inside of themselves that feels unworthy and place their inner magic to it. And I do this really well. I've watched people achieve things, do things that they have never done before, simply because they've met me, and I've shown them the way through unworthiness rather than the way around it. And listen to that, guys, the way through it rather than around it. Everyone wants to go around it, bypass it, remove it, and then they've got this thing called confidence. And they're able and they're worthy. Now, those people aren't really good at getting feedback anymore. The moment people are worthy, in quotes, they're terrified of being unworthy again. So they hide the unworthiness under the covers, and they get really angry at anyone who might be telling them that they could have a problem with their work, or that maybe there's a flaw in what they do. So they fight tooth and nail to expose and express their worthiness to anyone who might question them.
That makes sense. So I guess in that regard, unworthiness is actually really good to have as well.
Yeah.
It allows you to take feedback on. It can be also debilitating.
It can be. So it really comes down to how you use it. And there are times where I feel like it debilitates me still. And I think it's partly probably because I'm scared of being arrogant. It frightens me more than anything.
Yeah, so I get that.
So I just make sure that I have it in my pocket, because I know humility and listening is very, very important to me. And unworthiness helps me stay there in those two places. I'm willing to listen to anyone who's got a voice. Even if they're completely out of balance, I will listen, simply because I want to find out what piece of gold is in their voice that I can learn. So, yeah, it's one of those things. It's whether it's what way you want to go. And we always say in the academy, if you're frightened or you don't feel good enough, just do it anyway, and the results will speak for themselves. And the results are not necessarily successful results. It's the fact that you've given something a shot.
You can just be proud of that, even.
Yeah, exactly. You know, if I look at what I've done now, I never thought I would have done what I've done now, simply because I've given life a shot. Unworthiness has given me the journey forward, and unworthiness will constantly be in my back pocket no matter what I do in my life, and it's going to help me grow.
And you'll have less regrets.
Yeah, and that's the thing that's really important, guys, is that if you... I think we've done a podcast on regret, haven't we? So unworthiness, if we can use it this way and keep stepping in on our toes in a healthy way, instead of freezing and sitting on the couch, then we're going to get where we want to go in life, and we'll live a liberated life with it in our back pocket. It doesn't have to stop you guys. It can make you do amazing things, and I've met so many unworthy millionaires over the years. And they tell me what's going on, and I say, okay, they've got the unworthiness still sitting in their pocket. They just don't want anyone to know, which is fair enough, because people are scared of losing people if they share their vulnerabilities, right? Whereas I'm not scared of that. I want to be real. I want to share what I'm going through, because I want to be fully understood, and I want you guys to be fully understood, that it's okay for you to be still feeling things that are difficult no matter where you are in your journey in life, because I've met so many people who feel terrible and money doesn't make them feel good. Unworthiness is in everybody. It's what you're going to do with it that matters, and the more vulnerable you are, the more real you are, the more connected you are, the safer you are to be in this world.
Beautiful. Well, I think that's all my questions for today. I think that was really nice saying at the end there.
Okay, well, guys, if you really like this podcast today, you can view it on www.wellnessbreakthroughacademypodcast.com. I'd really love it if you'd like and review this podcast, put a comment on it. No matter what you think of it, it doesn't really matter. It's really good that you put whatever you feel is the right thing to put in the comments. If you think someone could really do with some of this information, please share it with them. Okay, thanks so much.